How's it going, guys? It's Sunday morning and it's about 45 degrees out or so, and as the day progresses the temperature is going to get cooler, and then for the next 5 days it's going to be a high of like 32 degrees, overnights into the teens. So I really want to get this done. So yesterday what I did is I basically spent all day, it was drizzly and overcast, but it was in the 50s. So basically yesterday I spent all day working on the truck, and I apologize, guys, I didn't film. I understand why guys who do stuff for the first time take it apart, then don't put it back together, because taking it apart, as I said before, is easy. Putting it back together is a little harder, and you're more in the game, and you really want to focus on one thing. So I just want to do a quick update today about where we are, obstacles I hit, and solutions from yesterday, and just kind of give you guys an update. So let's get at it. I do want to show you guys this cool cart I got just about a year ago, and I've been using it more as a table than a cart. But what I do is I put all my jacking stuff and my wood blocks, and I have a mat I keep on the bottom, and my bucket for sitting on and putting brake calipers on. I have a cool knee pad here, and then I keep my tools. When the job starts, all I do is keep my ratchets here, and then as I use tools I just throw them on the cart, and this way when I'm done, as I take them off the cart, I clean them and put them away. And it's really nice because I don't end up putting all my tools on the ground, and it then takes me more effort to pick them up off the ground and they get dirty. But I made a little custom paper towel holder here. I keep my grease gun on the cart. There's enough room for a bag back here. This is the handle for my jack, so I know where my jack handle is all the time. And I do keep the gloves and the magnetic tray here as well. But just to have a table, if this was an oil change, I put all my oils, it'd be a lot less tools. But with jobs like this, I really like this cart for the ability to just have a mobile table. And this is larger, this is the medium-sized cart, and I also got the pneumatic tires on it. This cart is like 150 without pneumatic tires. The pneumatic tires jack it up quite a bit, but because I thought I might be using this to take my chainsaw and bar and chain oil out to where I cut wood, I got pneumatic tires. You can never have too much room for storage, so this thing is great for when I'm working on stuff, and then I keep it by the garage door when it's clean, and if I want to just bring something inside, like if I have groceries, bring them inside the door, put them on the cart, and do that as well. And I only put one hole in it so far to mount this holder for my knee pad. I'm trying to keep it as sparse as possible because I really want this cart to be the spot to put stuff as I'm working on a job for the top shelf, bottom shelf jacking and such. I did take the fender liner off on this side, and I'd like to go ahead and put that back on. And the first thing I want to do is work on getting that pipe back on the intercooler there. Here's the results of our efforts yesterday, and I got the power steering pump back on. I got all the power steering lines changed. I put some plastic on this, whatever this thing is here. There's some vacuum going through it and some cable. There was a cloth covering on it that was getting chafed, so I went ahead and put this plastic on it. I gotta say, it wasn't a big deal, but it took a lot of time. It definitely took a lot of time because it was some very awkward positions. And I understand why guys have, short, intermediate, and long sockets. And I understand why guys have short, intermediate, and long wrenches. And I understand why guys have a gazillion different ratchets, because, you start working on some of this stuff and there really is a specific ratchet that would make it a lot easier. So I kind of get it now. My return hoses It does not matter how they get installed, and I want to just take a moment and think about this. I think I want the return hose from the front here to go to the farther position on the pump, and then the return hose here to go closer, because basically every time this power steering pump gets taken off, we're going to lose a couple inches of hose because it gets welded on. The heat of the motor makes the hose weld on, so the only way to get it off is to cut it off. So when you're installing this, we'll see how I do, but I recommend, and I'm going to try not to cut the return hoses, because I know every time I do a power steering pump, they'll be cut anyways. And my old hoses were due for a new hose because they were getting kind of short. And the other thing is, when you're putting the bolt right over here in the top on the top bolt on the vacuum pump assembly, vacuum power steering pump assembly, use a drift for that gasket. I put some grease on, which I'm not sure is good or bad. I hope I don't get bit by that. But a little drift, this is the smaller size drift I have. Get it lined up, and then use the drift to line up both the gasket and the assembly, and you can just basically lift up on the back of this a little bit so there's no stress on the bolt, and thread that bolt in. And once you got the top, then go down to the bottom and use the drift again, line things up, and tighten those bolts up a little at a time. Don't tighten one all the way then the other. Tighten them both up at the same time, making sure there's nothing between the timing cover and the vacuum pump, so you don't crunch it. Don't force anything. I guess that's what we should say. This, I believe, is the ground from the battery, and then this one up here is a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know what it is. But one thing I did last time is I let the wires get in the way. So this time when I was working on it, I took a bungee cord, bungeed this, and pulled it out of the way. And then at one point I was doing something, and I just took this whole wire and I stretched it. Didn't really stretch it, I just put it on top of the power steering pump to get it the heck out of the way. So when you're taking this stuff apart, like these little clips get in your way, don't be afraid to just twist them one way or the other, or put a bungee cord on these wires, gently, to get them out of the way. And the other thing is, when you're doing the power steering lines, if you do them, please get yourself a set of these Sunex crow's foot wrenches. These things were lifesavers. I did manage to get the pressure line out of the power steering pump. I didn't put that on till I had everything in. It was tricky, but it was very doable. And these lines down here off the steering box, the crow's foot was just amazing. The crow's foot and like a 30-inch extension was just the tool to break them free. And let me just show you this too. I did spray a whole bunch of I don't know if we can get that in focus. I did spray a whole bunch of fluid film on that tower there, because that's a spot that tends to rust a lot. My first job today is going to be to get this intercooler line back on from the bottom, and then work my way up to get it to the block. Once I get that on, I can then attach my my oil dipstick and all the wires and such. And then I do want to get that fender liner on before it gets cold and the plastic gets brittle. The auto parts store closes at noon today, at 1 o'clock today, so around noon I'll go get some power steering fluid, and I also need to pick up some vacuum line, or some connections for a vacuum line, because I started working yesterday and I was like, where's the vacuum line? And the thing had broken off, and it's actually not the vacuum line. It's this ridiculously old fitting that just its time had come. So I'll bring that in and see if hopefully they have like a little box full of connectors. I've never messed with vacuum line before. Hopefully it's not a big deal. And then the other thing I just wanted to say is this intercooler pipe, I did put a coat of black barbecue paint on it. When I took it off, there were some spots, like right over here, where it was like it had like a white corrosion on it. The paint was bubbly, and there was like a white corrosion. And I thought it was aluminum, but it's not. It's definitely steel. So I don't know why the corrosion was white, but I went ahead and sanded it. I used my brush grinder just where the corrosion was and cleaned it all off. And then the only high heat paint I could find was barbecue paint. And in retrospect, I probably would use engine enamel, but I don't think it came out that bad for barbecue paint. I mean, it's not like I'm going to be staring at this all the time, but what I wanted to do was just stop the rust from spreading there. So we saved this piece for a while. And I also, while I had these pieces out, I sprayed this whole piece with silicone. I have a spray silicone. I sprayed the inside and outside with silicone and just let that soak for a day, just to keep that silicone fresh. So I think we're good there. These pieces, I looked online, Gates makes them, and I think this one piece is like, is it like 90 or 130? I was on Rock Auto. These pieces aren't cheap. So, you know, I don't mind replacing a clamp, but try not to break this stuff, because if you can find it, that's great. But also, a lot of the stuff out there is performance stuff, and the basic OEM type stuff is harder to find for me. So I did these two hoses up here, and then this is a new hose as well, and I put a band clamp on it. I'd love to find a band clamp that doesn't have the ears. I like band clamps, I just don't like that ear sticking up that's going to cut somebody. Just had like a squeeze connect thing, just like lawnmower fuel lines have. I like the band clamp much better, but I don't like that ear sticking off that could cut somebody. I just want to show you guys deep down in here, this bolt, which caused me some concern as to how it came on and off. And it does, we're not in focus. There you go. So it does fit on, you know, the way it looks like it's supposed to fit on. And I suspect the reason it didn't fit on when I was cleaning my parts was because there was some corrosion on it. But that bolt down there, for me, you know, individual results may vary, does fit perfectly fine that way. And so all the studs, I put the short side of the stud into the power steering pump, and then I put the bolts on. And then don't forget, you got to put that bracket on the motor, which is confusing and difficult to get to. It can be done. I found for the one on the motor, I stared at it and then I closed my eyes and kind of did like a Jedi trick to feel for where I thought it was and thread it in. You know, as with all bolts, once you get them threaded, you're good, but getting them threaded and getting them not cross-threaded, that's a bigger deal. That's where we are, folks. So we're not really going to have anything until the next update video, but I just wanted to show you guys where we are. Thanks.